bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everybody. Okay, we have been studying the Vatthupama Sutta. This is Sutta number 7 in the Majjhima Nikaya. And last time, it was quite a few weeks ago, we went through the 16 mental defilements mentioned in the sutta. And then I explained the three ways of abandoning defilements. Just to go over those again. One is through temporary, it's called abandoning in a particular respect, or temporary abandoning of defilements. And this is the kind of abandoning that takes place when one develops a particular quality that is exactly opposed to a particular defilement. For example, it said that one develops the meditation on the unattractive nature of the body to overcome sensual lust, or one develops the meditation on loving kindness to overcome hatred, anger, ill will. And also, just when one notices a defilement arise, and then one makes an effort, one applies energy, just to remove that defilement from the mind, and to bring the mind back to a state of clarity. So this temporary effort to remove the defilement, this is the first type of abandoning, the abandoning in a particular respect. The second kind is abandoning by suppression, and this is what occurs through the achievement of deep samadhi, particularly the attainment of the jhanas, the meditative absorptions, when the mind becomes completely absorbed in the meditation object, and then the defilements don't appear at all. And then through the power of the deep samadhi, even when one comes out of the samadhi back to normal consciousness, through the continuing power, the residual power of the samadhi, the defilements remain in a state of quiescence or suspension. So that some who master the samadhis could even think that they have achieved arahatship, that they've completely eradicated all of the defilements. And then the third way of eliminating or abandoning the defilements is called eradication, abandonment through eradication. And this is the stage where one completely cuts off the defilement, even at the root, so that it can never arise again. And this is the kind of abandoning that takes place when one develops panya, or wisdom, and one cultivates this wisdom until it reaches the level of the Lokuttara Magga. This is the world-transcending or supramundane path realization. And the sheet that I gave out last time, the handout, related the 16 defilements of the discourse on the simile of the cloth to the 4 stages of attainment, the 4 stages of awakening or liberation. So on the second side of that page, we explain that this is according to the method of the commentaries, which is in turn based on the Abhidhamma. The path of stream entry eliminates 6 of these defilements: contempt, insolence, envy, miserliness, deceit, and craftiness. Then the second stage of enlightenment, the stage of the once-returner, doesn't eliminate any new defilements. So the next stage, this path of the non-returner, eliminates 4 defilements. That is ill will, anger, hostility, and heedlessness. Heedlessness being understood here as, let's say, sensual craving, sensual desire. That's the way it's explained by the commentary. And then the path of arhatship eliminates 6 of the defilements: covetousness and unrighteous greed, which are taken together as one, obstinacy, rivalry, conceit, arrogance, and vanity. Then last time I also explained my own questioning of some of these stipulations in the commentary. To me, I haven't found any sutta text that says that the path of stream entry eliminates these 6 defilements. And the statement in the commentary that the path of non-returner eliminates pamada, or heedlessness, is based on identifying heedlessness with, basically with sensual craving, with sensual desire. But if we take heedlessness in a more general sense, as a kind of negligence in eliminating defilements from the mind whenever they arise, then it would seem to me that heedlessness is eliminated only at the 4th stage, with the attainment of arhatship. Okay, before I go on, I'll ask whether there are any questions left over from last time. Yes, please.
So the last statement that you're saying is that all of the 3 first stages...
Wait, better to take the microphone. Oh yeah, yeah.
And then at the end, the last stage is where it's totally fine-tuned, and every unwholesome state that comes up, you're totally aware of it?
At the last stage?
Yeah.
At the last stage, all of the defilements are cut off permanently. So unwholesome states don't even arise at all.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me go further. Let us go further into the text. Okay, so what we've covered so far in the sutta takes us through section number 4, knowing that covetousness and unrighteous greed and so on is an imperfection that defiles the mind. The bhikkhu abandons it. And so this is repeated for each of the other defilements. Okay, so now we come to paragraph number 5. Okay, when a bhikkhu has known that covetousness and unrighteous greed is an imperfection that defiles the mind, or a defilement of the mind, and has abandoned it, when he has known that all of the others are imperfections that defile the mind, and has abandoned it, he acquires unwavering confidence in the Buddha thus. Okay, here the text uses a very specific expression, or an expression that has a very specific meaning within the framework of early Buddhist doctrine. This is the expression that's translated unwavering confidence. In Pali, this is okay, in Pali, this is called avecca pasada. The word pasada is what's translated as confidence. The word implies a kind of settling of the mind, a pacification or settling down of the mind. And it's usually used to signify the kind of attitude that one person has towards another person in whom he has confidence or trust. And so if somebody sees, for example, somebody who's a devout Buddhist, sees a very pleasing statue or image of the Buddha, there will arise in the mind a kind of attitude of pasada, which is trust, confidence, accompanied by a feeling of peacefulness, and the mind settles down and becomes calm and composed. And now this word pasada is qualified by the expression avecca, which means, literally it means having undergone or having experienced. So what this means is the confidence that arises based upon some degree of experiential realization of the truth of the Dhamma. And so this is used in the text as a technical expression for the confidence that a noble disciple has, especially in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So this is the confidence that sets into the mind with the attainment of the first stage of enlightenment, the stage of Sottapatti or stream entry. Up to that point, one can have simply pasada, confidence or trust in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. But it's with the attainment of stream entry that one sees the truth of the teaching, that one sees into the ultimate Dhamma. And so at that point, one has undergone the experience of seeing the truth of the Dhamma. And then there arises confidence in the Triple Gem based on that experiential realization of the truth. And in the text, we find occasional mention of 4 factors of stream entry. These are 4 factors that qualify a person as a stream enterer. And the first 3 of these are unwavering confidence in the Buddha, in the Dhamma, and in the Aryan Sangha, the community of the noble ones. And the 4th is a firm commitment to observance of the 5 precepts. It's said that the noble disciple is possessed of those virtues or those types of virtuous conduct which are dear to the noble ones, unbroken, unblemished, uncorrupted, and so on. Okay, so in paragraph 5, the text is describing this monk who has, to some extent, abandoned these defilements of the mind, describing such a one as at least a stream enterer. Okay, so it says that when the monk has known that these are the defilements of the mind and has abandoned them, then he acquires unwavering confidence in the Buddha thus. And then this is followed by the 9 epithets or 9 special qualities of the Buddha. So the Blessed One is, first, he's an accomplished one. The actual Pali word here is Arahan. Itiviso Bhagava Arahan. So the Buddha is, first of all, he's an Arahant, which means that he is one who has completely eradicated all defilements and achieved complete liberation from the cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth and death. Then beyond being an arhat, he's one who is perfectly or fully enlightened, one who understands fully all of the truths or principles of the Dhamma. He is one who has acquired true knowledge or higher knowledge and virtuous conduct, so that all aspects of his conduct are praiseworthy, upright, dignified. He is, the next word is sukhato, very difficult to translate exactly into English. It means literally well gone. And it's explained to mean that he has gone along the good path, that's the Noble Eightfold Path, and he's gone to the good goal, which is the attainment of Nibbana. He is the knower of the world, the incomparable, or better, unsurpassed leader or trainer of persons to be tamed, the teacher of the gods, these are the devas, and human beings, the enlightened one and the blessed one, the one who possesses excellent, outstanding virtues. Okay, then he acquires unwavering confidence in the Dhamma, that the Dhamma is well proclaimed, well taught, well expounded by the Buddha, that it's visible here and now in this very life, that it's immediately effective, that as one practices, one can gain the benefits in this very life, that it's inviting inspection, that is, it calls upon one to examine it, to put it into practice, and to see the benefits for oneself. It leads onward, and it's to be experienced by the wise for themselves. So here, under the Dhamma that he has confidence in, we actually have 3 aspects of the Dhamma. One is the Dhamma as the teaching, the Dhamma that's expounded. So that's the Dhamma which is said to be well proclaimed. Then there's the Dhamma as the path of practice. This is what is signified by visible here and now, immediately effective, inviting inspection, and leading onward. And then there's Dhamma as the goal, the ultimate goal. And that is the Dhamma that's to be experienced by the wise for themselves. Okay, then next he has unwavering confidence in the Sangha. And here what's meant by the Sangha is not necessarily the monastic order. We say that the monastic order, the order of fully ordained monks and nuns, is, I would call it, the visible representation of the Sangha. But the actual Sangha, which is the third refuge and the third jewel, is not the monastic order, but it is the spiritual community of those who have realized the truth of the Buddha's teaching. This is the community of the noble persons. So it's said that the Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples is practicing the good way, practicing the straight way, practicing the true way or the effective way, practicing the proper way. Then comes the specification of who is this Sangha of the Buddha's disciples. It's the 4 pairs of persons, the 8 types of individuals that it is. Okay, this means it's the 4 pairs of persons. That is the stream enterer, the once returner, the non-returner, and the arahat. And those who have entered on the irreversible paths leading to those 4 stages of attainment. So we take, for each type of person, there is the path attainer and the one who has reached the fruit of the path or the goal of the path. So in this way we have 4 pairs of persons or 8 individuals. And then it said, this Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation. That is what is called, in Pali, is called Anjali, which is putting the hands, the palms of the hands together and then bowing the head. The unsurpassed field of merit for the world. So making gifts and offerings to the Aryan Sangha generates great amount of punya, good merit or wholesome karma that leads to one's well-being and happiness in life after life. Okay, so these are the first 3 factors of stream entry, or the disciples at each of the higher stages also have these 3 types of unwavering confidence. Okay, so when the Buddha speaks about this disciple as acquiring the 3 types of unwavering confidence, it signifies that this disciple is now at least a stream enterer, but he could also be once returner or non-returner. But in this context, not yet an arhat. Okay, we could see this from the next section in the sutta. He goes on to say, when he has given up, expelled, released, abandoned, and relinquished, that is, these defilements of the mind, to some extent, or in part. The text uses actually a rather rare expression which means the expression it uses is indicated in note number 90. In Pali it reads yat odi, which means up to a certain limit, but not yet completely. So in other words, the text is suggesting that the disciple has eliminated these defilements partly, but not yet totally and completely. And we'll see that the disciple still has further work to do in order to reach the goal. Okay, so when he has eliminated these defilements in part, then he reflects back on his achievement, especially acquiring this unwavering confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And so when he reflects back first on his unwavering confidence in the Buddha, then he gains, here we have an expression I've translated, he gains inspiration in the meaning, he gains inspiration in the Dhamma, he gains gladness connected with the Dhamma. Okay, the Pali for this term the Pali for this expression that's translated inspiration in the meaning, this is Attaveda, and inspiration in the Dhamma is Dhammaveda. Now this word Veda, of course, has a very important meaning in the context of Indian spirituality. This was the word that the Brahmins used to signify their collections of sacred texts, sacred scriptures. They called them the Vedas. And so these are the hymns and verses and poems that the very early Brahmins had composed and preserved in a very old form of Sanskrit called Vedic Sanskrit. It's a very beautiful language. But the word Veda itself is related to it's based on the root vid, which means both to know and to feel. So the word Veda combines these two, we say it has two facets. It's a kind of knowledge which is accompanied by an elevated feeling. And it's a feeling which is accompanied by knowledge. And so the word inspiration here, it's not really so adequate, but it's almost impossible to find an English word which is able to unify these two implications of the word Veda. Maybe we could think of it as a kind of inspired knowledge. A knowledge that's suffused with a feeling of exhilaration and exaltation.
Epiphany?
Excuse me?
Epiphany, maybe? Not quite?
I think epiphany maybe is too closely tied to a theistic context, so it might suggest something that's not quite suitable. Okay, so the commentary also explains this word Veda to mean knowledge accompanied by joy. So he's gaining knowledge of the Dhamma, but also experiencing the joy of the Dhamma. Joy, knowledge, and joy in the meaning and in the teaching. And then this leads into what is here translated gladness. But again, gladness is, I think, too weak a word. It's pamoja, which would be maybe better translated joy or even exhilaration. Exhilaration connected with the Dhamma. So when he is exhilarated, then there arises in him rapture. Here the word rapture, this is the Pali word piti. It's a very uplifting type of joy. So we might even translate this elation. Elate, it's a joy or rapture, again, that's accompanied by a sense of elation. And then when this rapture is developed, then the body and the mind settle down and become tranquil. And then one whose body and mind have become tranquil experiences sukha, which is translated pleasure. This is not the sensual pleasure, but this is a very refined inner pleasure, or even we could maybe render this as bliss. And then one who feels pleasure or who experiences this bliss, the mind becomes concentrated. Here the verb used, samadhi, is connected to the noun samadhi. So we have here a sequence that begins with unwavering confidence in the Buddha. And so the noble disciple will, in meditation, take the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha as the objects of meditation. And then by focusing on the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, a kind of inspiration, an inspired knowledge will arise in him. And this will give rise or be accompanied by this feeling of gladness or exhilaration. And then as this exhilaration is developed, it will evolve into rapture, in uplifting joy, a sense of elation. The elation, as it's developed, will lead to a settling down or calming down of the body and mind, focus on either the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as object. Through the settling of the mind, then this inner feeling of pleasure or blissfulness will arise, this kind of tranquil, like a stream of cool bliss pouring into the mind. And as the mind is suffused by this feeling of cool bliss, then it becomes settled and well focused on its object, so that it enters into samadhi. Okay, so this is kind of samadhi is developed based on the Buddha, based on the Dhamma, based on the recollection of the Sangha, and based on the consideration that one has, or the reflection that one has abandoned, at least in part, these defilements of the mind. Okay, now the Buddha makes in paragraph 12 a statement that's a little difficult to understand in this context. But he says, if a bhikkhu of such virtue, such Dhamma, which the commentary explains as concentration, and such wisdom eats alms food consisting of excellent hill rice, along with various sauces and curries, even that will be no obstacle for him. Then again he brings in the simile of the cloth. Just as a cloth that is defiled or stained becomes pure and bright with the help of clear water, or just as gold becomes pure and bright with the help of a furnace, so too if a monk of such virtue, concentration, and wisdom eats this delicious alms food, there will be no obstacle for him. I have to say, the simile here seems out of place. It doesn't really work in relation to the thing it's being compared to. Somehow, it seems to me that in the oral transmission of the sutta, the simile got detached from its original position. It seems that the simile works better in relation to maybe paragraph 8, about him giving up, expelling, releasing, abandoning, and relinquishing these defilements of the mind. Okay, but the way I would understand the example here of or the case here of the monk who's able to eat this alms food without it being an obstacle to him, the text seems to be suggesting that the monk under consideration could have gone through his practice up to the stage of non-returner. Because the non-returner is one who has completely eliminated sensual desire. That is, desire for any attractive objects of the 5 physical senses. And so the non-returner can eat delicious alms food, and he'll have no craving for that alms food. He'll have no gratification in the taste of the alms food. But it will just be, he'll just use the alms food, even if it's very delicious, just use it with an understanding that this food is for the purpose of sustaining and supporting the body and for continuing to live the spiritual life. Okay, now the Buddha is going to show how this monk progresses further beyond the stage of a trainer or of a trainee, one who's still in training, to the stage of an arhat. And the way the monk does this is by developing the samadhi to a particular deep level of concentration, and then using that samadhi as the basis for further development of wisdom. The particular approach to samadhi that's being taught in this sutta is the development of samadhi based on the 4 Brahmaviharas. These are the 4 divine abodes, or the 4 sublime states. And I prepared a table which gives some analysis of the 4 sublime states. Has everybody gotten a copy of the table? Anybody didn't get it? If anybody didn't get it, then just raise your hand. Okay, so everybody has it, so we can take a look at the 4 divine abodes. Okay, if each of these qualities has its own specific definition its own specific meaning. It is also said to have what is called a near enemy and a far enemy. The near enemy is a quality which is similar, superficially it's similar to that of the divine abode. And for that reason, the near enemy is somewhat dangerous. It's a little bit like somebody who really is intent on harming you, but he appears as a friend who comes and says, let me help you, let me be of assistance to you, but the person wants to get close to you in order to injure you, or to undermine your well-being. The far enemy is the quality that is directly opposed to the divine quality. And so the far enemy is the type of mental state that it is the purpose of the divine quality to overcome and eliminate. So the first of the four divine abodes is metta, or loving kindness. And the specific quality or nature of loving kindness is the wish for the well-being and happiness of all beings. And so when one develops loving kindness as a meditation, then one extends to others the wish, may these beings be well, may these beings be happy. Sometimes one can amplify this in various ways. May they be peaceful, may they be healthy, may all of their good wishes be fulfilled. Okay, so this is metta, or loving kindness. Then the near enemy of loving kindness, let's take the far enemy first. The far enemy of loving kindness is ill will, hatred, resentment. And so we develop loving kindness in order to overcome ill will. And if ill will comes into the mind, then it will overpower loving kindness. And so we have to develop loving kindness as a way of strengthening the mind in this wish for the well-being and happiness of others. So if others treat us in mean and cruel ways, if others try to harm us, then we won't feel any ill will or resentment towards them. But we will continue to wish for their well-being and happiness. Okay, so ill will is the far enemy of loving kindness, but the near enemy is attachment. It's a kind of worldly love based on one's personal relationship to the other person. This doesn't mean that one shouldn't feel loving kindness towards other people who are close to you, or that you shouldn't have any personal affection for them. But when one is developing loving kindness, and then one thinks of a person who is a close friend or a close relative, then it's very easy for that feeling of worldly attachment to creep in the disguise of loving kindness. So you think you're developing loving kindness towards that person, but what is substituting for loving kindness is the natural, sort of deeply ingrained, instinctual feeling of personal affection and attachment based on your close relationship for that person. So it could be a husband towards his wife, the wife towards the husband, parents towards the child, a brother towards his brother, a sister towards sister, and so on. And so this is why in the normal sequence that's taught in texts like the Visuddhimagga, the normal sequence in developing loving kindness, we don't begin with a person who's very close to us, but first one begins with oneself, then one begins with a dear and respected person, like a teacher or benefactor or mentor. And then after one succeeds in developing loving kindness towards the benefactor, then one takes the close and dear person. Because it's through developing loving kindness towards the benefactor that one has a person with whom one has a positive relationship. And so it's relatively easy to arouse the loving kindness. But because this person is not related so closely to you, you can experience the distinct flavor of loving kindness without confusing it with this attachment and this kind of clinging related to personal affection. Okay, the second divine abode, or divine quality, is compassion. Now, loving kindness is taken to be the foundation for all four of the divine abodes, because loving kindness extends the wish for the well-being and happiness universally to all beings. But as one is extending loving kindness towards all beings, one will see that some of the beings one is extending the loving kindness towards are afflicted with suffering. So then after one develops the loving kindness to a certain degree of strength, strong enough to serve as a foundation, one can then focus in on those people, those beings who are undergoing suffering. And as one does so, when it feels the heart stirred, shaken, aroused, even broken by the suffering of others. And that quality, that trembling of the heart with other beings who are undergoing suffering, is what is meant by karuna, compassion. And so it is said that the specific meaning of compassion is empathy with the suffering of others, or maybe empathy with those who are undergoing suffering. Empathy, the word literally means feeling with, so that one feels with those who are undergoing suffering. But it doesn't mean that you yourself become miserable, upset, or afflicted. But it's actually accompanied by an inner rewarding feeling. It's a feeling that one enjoys because it involves the opening of the heart and the breaking down of the barriers of the heart. But the specific aspect that it's focusing on is the suffering of other beings. And so the tendency of compassion is to move one towards action intended to remove the suffering of others. So this is why the Visuddhimagga says that compassion promotes the aspect of removing suffering. The direct opposite of compassion, the far enemy, is cruelty, or the Pali word vihingsa or vihesa means that that motivation of the mind that moves one to inflict suffering on others, the drive to harm and injure others. And so a person with compassion will never think of harming others, but will always want to do anything possible to remove the suffering of others. Okay, the near enemy, what's called the near enemy of compassion, is worldly grief. This is the grief that arises when one hears that somebody who is dear and beloved to oneself has undergone a certain type of suffering, that they're ill.